What happens when your own staff doesn't know who you are and one of them's stealing from the others? That question hit Hudson Avery harder than he expected, as he sat in his downtown office overlooking the 7 locations he'd built from the ground up. Well, not exactly built. He'd bought the struggling café chain 6 years ago when it was barely staying afloat. Back then, it was 3 stores and a bunch of broken promises. Now it was 7 strong, with decent profits, regular customers, and a team of over 60 employees. But lately, something wasn't sitting right. Customer complaints had started creeping in. Nothing huge, just little things: cold sandwiches, long wait times, orders wrong. And reviews about one specific location, the 3rd branch he'd acquired in Eastfield, had started getting more negative. Hudson had asked his district manager to look into it, but all he got back was, just a few bad shifts, nothing major. That was the problem. Everyone always said it was nothing major. But Hudson had learned that nothing major usually meant something we don't want to deal with. So he decided to go see it for himself. Hudson had never met most of the frontline staff. With 7 stores and a hands-off leadership style, he spent most of his time with the district manager and store heads. And after growing out his beard, dyeing some of the gray from his hair, and swapping his usual button-downs for a plain hoodie and jeans, he looked more like a delivery driver than a CEO. He gave himself a fake name, Derek, and walked into the Eastfield Café on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The place looked clean enough. A little too quiet for lunch hour, but he figured the weather had something to do with that. He walked up to the counter. "Next," the girl called, not looking up. She was maybe 22, small frame, thick curls pulled into a ponytail. Her name tag read Riley. "Can I get the turkey pesto on sourdough?" Hudson asked. She glanced up. "Sure thing. That'll be $10.73. As he handed her a 20, a man suddenly stepped in from the back, stocky red polo, clipboard in hand. "I'll take that," he said, snatching the bill from Riley's hand before she could open the drawer. Riley blinked. Okay." Hudson watched the guy stuff the cash into a small zip pouch and walk off without a word. That was weird. He sat at the corner table and watched for the next 20 minutes. It happened again twice. Riley or the other cashier, Devin, would take cash and the same guy would swoop in, take the money and disappear into the back. Nobody questioned it. His sandwich came out lukewarm. Not bad, but definitely not fresh. The bread was soggy, like it had been sitting under the heat lamp too long. Hudson stood, walked back to the counter, and waited for Riley to finish up with a customer before speaking. "Hey," he said quietly, "that guy who keeps taking the cash, is he the manager?" Riley hesitated. "Yeah." "That's Troy. Does he always do that?" She glanced over her shoulder. "He says it's for fast cash reconciliation so we don't make mistakes, but yeah, he always does it." Hudson nodded slowly. "Okay, thanks." He left the cafe and sat in his car for a long while. Rain tapped against the windshield as he stared at the building. Something was off. Troy didn't just look confident, he looked like a guy who knew nobody was watching, and Hudson hated that more than anything. He came back the next day with a plan. This time, he applied for a trial shift. He called the district manager the night before and said, "Hey, I've got a cousin who's thinking about working food service. Mind if he shadows a shift at Eastfield tomorrow?" The manager agreed. So the next morning, Derek showed up in all black, hair tucked under a beanie, and got handed an apron by Devin. "Welcome to the circus," Devin said, offering a fist bump. "Try not to cry by noon." Hudson laughed. No promises. He was shown how to prep the sandwich line. Riley was training him, walking him through the different breads, sauces, and meats. She was patient, clear, and efficient. "You've done this a while?" he asked. 3 years, she said. "Tried for a supervisor role, but Troy said I wasn't ready." "Why not?" she shrugged. "Didn't say. Just said maybe next time." Hudson watched the way she worked, calm under pressure, kind to customers, fast with orders. Yeah, she was more than ready. Troy came in an hour later, phone in hand, not looking at anyone. He didn't greet the team, just walked straight to the back. A few minutes later, he came out and started doing his rounds. But not like a leader, more like a cop looking for someone to write up. "Devin, that trash needs to go out now," he snapped. "I was just now." Hudson watched the exchange. Devin's shoulders slumped as he walked toward the back. Then Troy turned to Riley. "You didn't restock the chip rack," he said. "I did. This morning. Not enough. Next time do it right." He didn't wait for a response. He just walked off again. Hudson felt his stomach twist. He stayed quiet the rest of the shift, just observing, doing whatever Riley told him. She was the only one who actually explained things. Devin kept his head down. A third employee, Maya, barely spoke and kept glancing at the clock. The tension was thick. That evening, as the shift wrapped up, Hudson offered to help wipe down the tables. He noticed the tip jar on the counter, barely anything inside. He saw Riley drop in her only dollar from lunch. Later, when they were closing, Troy walked up, picked up the jar, and walked into the back with it. Hudson followed. He cracked the door open just enough to see Troy dump the cash into the same zip pouch from the day before. Then he pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Hudson's chest tightened. He wasn't just skimming tips, he was taking them all. He walked out of the store that night with a storm in his chest. Not just about the money, but about how these workers were being treated, how Riley was overlooked, how Devin walked on eggshells, how nobody stood up because they thought this was just how it had to be. Hudson sat in his car for 2 hours that night, replaying everything. He thought about calling his district manager again, but what would that do? Another report. Another, "We'll look into it." No, this time he'd handle it himself. Tomorrow, Derek would show up again. And this time, he was going to push. Hudson arrived early the next morning, 10 minutes before the café opened. The lights were still off inside, but Riley stood at the front door, fumbling with her keys. She didn't notice him at first. Her focus was locked on the stubborn lock that wouldn't turn unless you held the handle just right. He stepped up beside her. "Want me to try?" She looked up, startled, then nodded and stepped aside. Hudson took the keys, lifted the handle slightly, and turned. The door clicked open. "Thanks," she said, stepping in. "Honestly, I've been telling them this lock sticks since last fall. Still waiting." Hudson followed her in, letting the door shut quietly behind them. The store woke up slowly. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, casting long shadows across the prep counter. The air was still cool, the ovens not yet humming. Riley clicked on the register, then pulled her apron tight and started setting up the bakery case without needing a list. Every movement was practiced, efficient. "I thought you were shadowing for just a day," she said, not looking up. "I asked to come back. Figured I might learn something." That got a small laugh from her. "Well, lesson 1, don't stay here too long unless you like headaches." Hudson kept his tone even. "You ever think about leaving? Every week. But rent's due every month." She didn't elaborate. He didn't push. As the cafe opened, the morning rush came in slower than he expected, maybe 8 customers in the first hour. Most knew exactly what they wanted. Regulars. Hudson noticed that the espresso machine sputtered strangely every 5th pull. Riley had to press the steam one twice to get it to cooperate. When he pointed it out, she nodded. "Pressure valves off." "Troy said we can't call for service unless it fully breaks. Isn't that kind of risky?" She gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, but so is calling him out." At precisely 9:30, Troy walked in. No hello, no acknowledgement that the cafe was already running smoothly. He stepped behind the counter, tapped a few buttons on the POS, then disappeared into the back again. Hudson turned to Riley. "Does he ever help out front?" "Only if someone calls out, and even then he acts like he's doing you a favor." Hudson noticed Devin wasn't in yet. Riley confirmed he was scheduled for 9 but hadn't texted. Maya was due at 10. That left just the two of them for now. By 10:15, there was still no sign of Devin. The line started to stretch. A customer at the front tapped her foot impatiently. "Sorry for the wait," Riley said, working faster now. "We're a bit short today." Hudson jumped in, handling drinks while Riley managed orders. Between them, they caught up within 15 minutes, but it was clear Riley had done this before picking up the slack without complaint. At 10:28, Maya walked in, pulled her apron from her backpack, and slid behind the counter without a word. She looked pale, slower than usual. "You okay?" Hudson asked. She nodded, though her eyes didn't meet his. "Didn't sleep." The next hour passed in a blur. A few more customers trickled in, and the team fell into a rhythm. But the mood shifted when Troy came out again. He hovered behind the register, watching transactions silently. Then, without warning, he reached in and lifted the till. "Back in a sec," he muttered. This time, Hudson followed him. Through a narrow hallway, past the walk-in fridge, Troy entered the cramped office. Hudson waited until the door clicked shut, then pressed his ear against the frame. He couldn't hear much, just the soft crinkle of bills, the zipping of that same pouch, and a low hum of music playing from Troy's phone. When Troy re-emerged, he barely glanced at Hudson before walking past him. Hudson rejoined the counter. Maya was wiping down the espresso machine slower than usual. Riley was helping a customer pick a sandwich. Hudson leaned in. Does he always take the till during shift? Riley glanced at the back hallway. Every day, same time. No receipts, she shook her head. We're not allowed to question it. Hudson turned to Maya. You get your tips yesterday. She didn't answer at first. Then, without looking up, she said, no. He said the jar was short, so we'd get them next week. Riley didn't react, but the way her hand tightened around the bread knife said enough. By noon, Devin still hadn't shown. Riley finally texted him from her phone during a lull. He replied once, then stopped again. By 12:30, the café was packed. The register beeped nonstop. The air grew heavier. The heat from the ovens started to spread, and with only one working fan in the kitchen, everyone was sweating. Maya disappeared for 10 minutes without warning. Hudson found her in the storage room, sitting on a crate with her head against the wall. You all right? She flinched. Just dizzy. He crouched beside her. You need water? She nodded. Hudson grabbed a cold bottle from the fridge and handed it to her. She drank half of it in one go. Why didn't you say something? She blinked slowly. Troy said if we leave the floor during rush again, we're off the schedule for a week. Hudson stared at her. You're having a hard time standing. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Doesn't matter. Hudson helped her back up and walked her to the side hallway where she could sit on a stool near the mop sink. Riley handled the counter alone until Hudson came back. By 2, the rush finally broke. The café was quiet again. Maya had recovered enough to restock the bakery case. Riley wiped down the counters. Hudson pulled Riley aside. Does corporate know about any of this? She looked at him like he'd asked if the sky was green. Tried once. Sent an email through the company site. Never heard back, he nodded. Later, while sweeping near the back hallway, Hudson saw Troy slip out the back door with the pouch in hand. Hudson followed. He didn't make it obvious, just stepped out a minute later and walked in the same direction. Around the corner of the alley, he saw Troy climbing into a black sedan. Hudson memorized the plates. Back inside, Riley was prepping for close. Maya had gone home early, her shift cut short. Devin never came. Hudson helped break down the sandwich station. Riley leaned against the counter. Today wasn't even the worst of it, she said quietly. He waited. We had a delivery guy get yelled at so bad last week he left mid-shift. Troy told him to grow up after he slipped on a wet floor, didn't even ask if he was okay. Hudson nodded once. Why stay? She hesitated. I've been here longer than anyone. If I go, Maya's alone. Devin doesn't push back. Someone has to stop it from getting worse. Hudson couldn't respond to that. Before he left, he looked her in the eye. Thanks for showing me the ropes. She gave a tired smile. You're one of the few who listens. He stepped outside into the evening light, the street humming with bus engines and distant chatter. He didn't go home. He drove to the central office. Inside, he pulled the security footage from the last 2 weeks at the Eastfield location. He cross-checked the timestamps with the till pulls. The money removed by Troy never matched the recorded deposits. Then he checked the tip logs. They hadn't been entered for 5 consecutive days. The numbers told the same story he'd seen firsthand. Troy wasn't lazy, he was stealing. Hudson sat back in the chair, the weight of it all settling on him. It wasn't just the money. It was the silence, the fear. The way everyone had learned to keep their heads down and their mouths shut. That silence ended tomorrow. He wouldn't come as Derek. He'd walk through that door as the owner, and nothing would be the same again. Hudson arrived 10 minutes before open, same as the day before. But this time, he didn't wear the black hoodie or the beanie. No apron, no disguise. Just a pressed Oxford shirt, dark jeans, and the look of someone who'd waited long enough. He stood outside the Eastfield Café and watched Riley unlock the door. She noticed him through the glass and hesitated, her hand pausing on the latch. Then she opened it slowly. Yours, she started, eyebrows narrowing. Yes, he said, stepping inside. I'm Hudson Avery. It took her a second. She looked him over again and the realization settled in. You're not, Derek. No, she looked behind him like she half expected a camera crew to follow. Are we in trouble? No, he said, lowering his voice. But Troy is, she blinked. You saw it then, all of it. I've also seen the deposits, the footage. He's been pulling cash from the register, redirecting tips and intimidating staff into silence. Riley didn't say anything. She just exhaled, long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath for months. I need you to keep things running like usual for the next hour, Hudson added. No one else needs to know I'm here right away. She nodded once, then walked to the counter to begin setup. He took a seat in the corner, laptop open, pretending to review spreadsheets while watching the door. Troy arrived at 9:30, just like yesterday. He entered with his usual air of impatience, thumbs scrolling on his phone. He gave Riley a vague nod and walked straight into the back. Hudson stood. He followed him down the hallway, pausing at the threshold of the office. Troy turned, surprised. I'm Hudson Avery. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the desk. For a long second, neither of them moved. I need you to step out front. We're going to have a conversation. In front of the team, Troy hesitated, eyes darting toward the safe behind him. Now, they walked out together. Riley had stopped wiping the counter. Maya, freshly arrived, stood just inside the kitchen doorway. One of the new hires, a kid Hudson hadn't met yet, looked between them, unsure whether to keep slicing tomatoes. Hudson stopped near the register and turned to face them all. My name is Hudson Avery. I'm the owner of this company. For the past 3 days, I've been working here undercover. I've seen how this café is run, and I'm not proud of what I found. The air felt tighter suddenly. No one spoke. He turned to Troy. You've been pulling cash mid-shift without documentation. You've been collecting tip jars and not distributing them. You've threatened employees to keep quiet. I've watched you do it. I've reviewed the footage. I've seen the discrepancies in the books. Troy lifted his chin. All procedures were followed. Cash pulls were logged. No, they weren't. Hudson cut him off. You've been skimming from your own staff. You've created a hostile environment. You've put people at risk, physically and financially, and you've done it under the assumption that no one would notice. Troy's voice rose slightly. This store has hit revenue targets 5 months in a row. The turnover's lower than because people are too scared to leave, Hudson said, sharper now. Because Riley kept this place standing by herself, because Maya worked through exhaustion, because Devin stayed quiet, not because of you. Troy looked around the cafe, but no one came to his defense. Riley stood still, arms crossed. Maya didn't even blink. Hudson pulled a sealed envelope from his jacket. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you off the premises. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Do not return. Troy opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. Hudson turned toward the door. 2 security personnel entered silently, having waited in a car outside. Troy flinched at the sight of them. He tried to collect his things, but one of the guards shook his head. You can request your belongings through HR, Hudson said plainly. Troy didn't argue again. It took less than a minute for the guards to walk him out. The door clicked shut behind them. A long silence followed. Hudson exhaled, then looked at the team. Effective today, this store is under direct review. I'll be here for the next 2 weeks, full time. We'll be hiring a new manager after we finish restructuring. Maya shifted slightly. What about tips? They'll be counted and distributed daily, starting today. I've already pulled the jars from the last week. You'll be paid what you're owed with interest. Riley's eyes didn't leave him. And the equipment, the lock, the pressure valve, already logged. Service orders are scheduled, and a new lock will be installed tonight. The new hire raised a hand hesitantly. Are we still open today? Yes, Hudson said, but we'll be closing early. I want everyone to have a paid hour to talk, ask questions, and go home before dinner. He looked around the cafe. You've all been pushed harder than you should have. That ends now. He stepped out of the way, letting them return to work. Slowly, the team moved. Riley slipped behind the counter, helping a customer who had wandered in just moments after the door reopened. Maya returned to the prep station, quieter than before but steadier. Hudson didn't hover. He went to the back office, cleared Troy's access credentials, and called the HR rep to confirm the termination paperwork had been processed. When he came back out, Riley was just finishing a sandwich order. She glanced at him, then looked away. "Thanks," she said quietly. Hudson didn't respond right away. He watched her hand the sandwich to a customer with a calm, professional tone. "You should have been running this store," he said finally. She shrugged. "Didn't seem like that mattered before. It does now. But I'm not going to throw you into that role without support. Starting next week, we're bringing in a training lead to help restructure the team. You'll have the option to step into a leadership role if you want it." Riley didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." He stepped back, letting her work. That afternoon, the doors closed at 4. Hudson gathered the team in the dining area, not for a lecture but for a conversation. They talked through what hadn't been working. He really listened to Maya describing the lack of backup on weekends, to the new hire explaining how his onboarding was just a checklist taped to the fridge. He asked questions, wrote things down. By 5, they were all heading home, lighter than they had been that morning. Hudson stayed behind, cleaning up, checking inventory logs and reviewing the maintenance tickets himself. He didn't delegate this part, not anymore. 2 weeks passed, Hudson never missed a shift. He clocked in at 7 each morning, apron on, name tag reading simply Hudson. He didn't take meetings from the café office. He sat in the break corner with the team, ate the same soggy staff meals, and waited his turn for the microwave. He stocked bread, prepped produce, and ran the register during lunch rush. He didn't carry a clipboard or bark instructions. He just stayed present. The staff didn't warm to him overnight. They were polite but measured. The bruises left behind by Troy weren't the kind that healed fast. But slowly, trust began to grow, not because Hudson asked for it, but because he didn't. He listened when Maya told him the fridge's seal still wasn't holding temperature. He stayed late to help Devin finish inventory when the supplier dropped off the wrong case of deli meat. He didn't make speeches. He made space. On the 3rd Monday, the training lead arrived. Her name was Karen Wu, a quiet, methodical operator who had helped stabilize 2 other underperforming branches in the past year. She spent her first 2 days simply shadowing the team. Then late Wednesday afternoon, she pulled Hudson aside. "Riley's not just capable," she said. "She's already doing the job quietly, efficiently. No ego." "I thought the same," Hudson said. "She said she'd think about it." Karen nodded. "She's not waiting for permission. She's waiting to see if this place changes. She'll have her answer soon." By the 4th week, changes started to take shape. Not loud ones, quiet, structural ones. The espresso machine was replaced. A maintenance crew fixed the back door's warped frame. The tip jars were now locked, counted nightly by 2 employees and entered into a shared log. Hudson reviewed it himself every Friday. He didn't announce these things. He just made sure they happened. One morning, before doors opened, Hudson found Riley in the office sorting through the shift schedule. She had a pen tucked behind her ear and a stack of time-off requests spread across the desk. "That's not your job," he said. She didn't look up. "Someone had to." He stepped in and closed the door. "You ever see yourself running this place officially?" "I don't know," she said. "I care about it, but I don't want to spend every day putting out fires." "You shouldn't have to." She finally looked up. "Then what are you offering?" "A manager title, full pay bump, training support, and authority to choose your own assistant lead." She tapped the pen against the desk edge, thinking, "What happens if I say yes and it goes back to how it was before? Then we failed." "But you'll have a direct line to me, permanently. No district manager filter, no middle tier." She sat back, arms crossed. "I want Myra as my assistant." "You've got her if she wants it." "She will," Riley said. "She just needs someone to believe she can handle it." Hudson smiled. "Then you've got your team." She stood slowly. "All right, I'm in." That Friday, Karen gathered the staff after close. No fanfare, no corporate banners, just the team in the dining area, chairs pulled into a loose circle. "Starting Monday," she said, "Riley will be stepping into the manager role here. Maya will be assistant lead. They'll have full authority over scheduling, training, and daily operations." The room was quiet for a moment, then Devin clapped once, then again. Maya looked stunned. Riley didn't say anything, just nodded once. Karen continued. "We're also rolling out a new shift equity policy. No one works back-to-back closes and opens. No one goes more than 6 days straight. That starts immediately." Hudson stepped forward. You've all kept this place running through things you shouldn't have had to. That ends here. If something's broken, say it. If someone's out of line, speak up. If you need help, ask, he paused. And if we don't listen, hold us accountable. The group dispersed quietly after that, no celebration. Just relief. The following Monday, Riley ran her first full shift as manager. She didn't change much. She didn't need to. She just did what she'd always done, but now no one stood in her way. She adjusted prep schedules so Maya could take a full lunch without the line falling apart. She replaced the laminated sandwich build guide taped to the fridge with a printed binder that actually made sense. She trained the new hires personally, and she gave Devin his first weekend off in 6 months. Hudson watched all of it unfold over the next week. Then he scheduled his final shift. He clocked in on a Thursday morning, quiet day. Light rain outside. Riley handed him the prep list without comment. They worked side by side for most of the morning. Around 11, between the breakfast crowd and lunch rush, he stepped outside with her to take inventory. "You're in good hands now," he said. "I'll be stepping back." She didn't react right away. "You sure?" "Yeah," he said. "I didn't come here to take over, just to see the truth." She glanced at him. "And did you?" He nodded. "More than I expected." She looked down at the order sheet, then back up. "So what happens now? I visit once a month. You send me your reports directly, and if you ever feel like we're drifting again, you call me." She raised an eyebrow. "You'll pick up." Every time. They went back inside. The lunch rush came and went. Tips were counted, dishes washed, floors mopped. At the end of the shift, Hudson hung his apron on the hook near the back door. He shook Maya's hand, gave Devin a nod. Then he turned to Riley. She didn't offer a speech, didn't say much at all, just extended her hand. He took it. "See you around," she said. Then she went back to work. As Hudson stepped out into the fading sunlight, he paused on the sidewalk. The café behind him buzzed with quiet energy, not perfect, but real. A team no longer surviving, but standing on their own. He didn't need to look back. He knew exactly what was inside.